welcome to the stage Jenna Kaye. She's the CEO of Odyssey Trust Company. So Jenna, please. We're excited to have you all here. So I'm head of psychedelics content. We had a wonderful psychedelics conference yesterday, which was a smaller event, but it was really great, and everyone enjoyed it a lot. And we're moving on with cannabis now. So just Jenna, I'll let you introduce yourself. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, your past history, what you've been doing in the cannabis space, and what Odyssey is all about.
Sure. So thanks for having me, and thanks for having Odyssey down to Benzinga. We're super happy to be here. We're happy to be meeting all of our clients in person again and getting back into the groove of things. As Nathan mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Odyssey Trust Company. We are a transfer agent and trust company that's headquartered in Canada, but also works cross-border. And so really our role, for anyone who doesn't know, as a transfer agent is to be the gatekeeper of all securities. And so what that means is anyone who is a publicly listed company would engage us to essentially monitor any issuance or cancellation of their securities. And so our foray into cannabis was a very interesting one. It started in 2018 when the first U.S. cannabis companies started going public in Canada. And at the time, our main competitor, whose Computershare, was not willing to enter the business. And so we had this great opportunity when Green Thumb and MedMen listed in 2018 on the CCC to be their transfer agent. And really from there, we were the transfer agent for almost every other U.S. cannabis company that came and listed in Canada, as well as most of the Canadian-based and global cannabis companies as well. And yeah, it's been an exciting ride. We're obviously very grateful to many of the issuers who are here at this conference for their trust in us and the ongoing relationships and partnerships that we've built. It's been an exciting space to be in. It's very complex at times, but it's dynamic, and we see a really exciting future in cannabis.
Great. So maybe you can help us understand better, if a company goes to you and they want to go public in Canada, what do you do exactly to make them get there?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to think about it is when you're a private company, you can be managing your cap table using Excel or sort of any other avenue that you choose to, whether it be your law firm or a platform like Carta or something like that. But when you go public, you're required by law to have an independent third party act as your transfer agent. Mm-hmm. And so we take on that role. So we're a capital markets service provider. The industry is very different in Canada than the US. So in Canada, there's really only 3 competitors, ourselves being one of them. And then in the US, there's 4,000 transfer agents. Wow. So it's a lot more broad of space. And the real difference there is in Canada, you have to be a financial institution. So Odyssey is a regulated financial institution. And again, we play that key role as the gatekeeper of securities. So many of the people who are here today may have spoken to Odyssey at some point about trying to get their shares deposited with a broker or transferred or get a US legend removed. And in addition to managing the issuance of stock, we also do things like corporate trust. So we will act as trustee on a debt financing. We'll manage a subreceipt, a warrant indenture. We have a real breadth of services that we can offer in addition to that.
So why is it that it's so hard to become a trust company in Canada, and what made you, get there? How did you achieve that? Okay.
Yeah, good question. So I used to be a former securities lawyer, and so I had a legal background and knew quite a bit about the securities side of the transfer agent world. The interesting thing is that to a lot of people, it's a very administrative function. But looking at it now being on the inside, it's very technical, we're a key player in all capital markets activity. And again, one of the challenges in becoming a transfer agent is you have to be a financial institution, so you have to have a certain amount of capital that's restricted. And you really have to have a tight auditing and compliance program. Because as you can imagine, sometimes we get asked, I want to deposit my security, with my broker, I want to transfer it. Well, that is security, or it is a financial instrument. And so the way that it's processed needs to go through this very tightly controlled environment to make sure that everything is done exactly the way it needs to be. But it's an exciting time to be a transfer agent because there's a lot of disruption happening. So cannabis disrupted the environment, but also COVID disrupted. So we're very paperless. We do lots of things digitally. So we'll issue DRS statements instead of physical securities, which represent ownership. We'll also host virtual meetings. We can do Zoom medallion guarantees. And so we view ourselves as really a disruptor in the space to bigger organizations like ComputerShare that just are a bit more slow moving. And I think it's really helped serve our clients well.
So how would you say that going fully legal in Canada affected, the whole market and the work you do?
Yeah, so I always say cannabis is the gift that keeps on giving. We were very, very lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And so when other transfer agents wouldn't work with cannabis issuers, we got to have all that business ourselves. But in addition to building the relationships with clients that have really been the biggest positive for us, we've also gotten to work with many law firms that have led the deals. And so in addition to having the majority of the cannabis market share in Canada and the US, we've also been able to diversify into other industries. So the same law firms, knowing the challenges and some of the complexities we were able to tackle for the cannabis issuers, are now giving us work in mining or crypto or fintech or energy. So it's been a really great opportunity for us to showcase ourselves and our team.
So what was it like entering the US market? Was it, very difficult to, penetrate that market and become a leader in taking companies public in Canada?
Yeah, one of the biggest trends that we see from, north of the border is that many companies will have listed in Canada because that was the first market to really welcome cannabis with open arms. But now many of them are dual listing or getting a US quote, whether it's on OTC markets or NASDAQ. And because Odyssey is an SEC approved transfer agent and we're a DTC fast participant, we can actually manage that cross-border listing as well. And so from a processing standpoint, you really get the benefit of being listed in Canada, but getting all of the US capital markets exposure.
Right.
And so in the last 12 months, I think the last numbers we saw, there were 600 Canadian issuers that got a quote OTC or listed NASDAQ. And I think this is a trend that we're going to see keep accelerating over the next 12 to 18 months as people are really seeking that US exposure and liquidity that you might expect after this period of time being in Canada.
Right. So if cannabis eventually becomes federally legal in the US, would that endanger your business in some way? Do you think that some companies will delist from Canada and start listing in the US more? Or do you think that Canada can still offer, Canadian exchanges can still offer, something special for companies to list there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And something that we've certainly thought about as a company over the past few years. But I think it would probably be a stretch that they would delist from Canada. I think you just see more companies going after a NASDAQ listing or a NYSE listing and maintaining their Canadian quote. And so again, being a US transfer agent, we're also set up for any of those plans. So currently we have NYSE listed issuers, we have NASDAQ listed issuers, we have clients that are listed in UK, Hong Kong, Australia. We work with other transfer agents to facilitate those relationships. But I think another point to that is when cannabis companies went public, some of the cap table structures are very complex versus a sort of standardized IPO. And so we have a lot of historical data and relationships and insight as to how those companies went public. And so I think it's one of the key relationships that we've been able to build and really manage the activity within the stock quite efficiently.
So you've been working very professionally with cannabis companies. You also work with other emerging markets or other companies that are maybe in a gray legal area?
Yeah, so I'm the chair of Canada's first regulated crypto custodian. It's called Tetra Trust. And so again, they're in a sweet spot of living in a regulated industry, which is what everyone in crypto still wants, but being able to custody, Bitcoin or Ether or other tokens and coins. So I think the future for emerging industries is most people, especially investors, do want the regulatory oversight, but also want there to be some flexibility in capital markets to allow for those emerging industries to get off the ground quicker and more efficiently. So both Odyssey and Tetra, I think, play a key role in the next wave of emerging industries.
Yeah, I can imagine. I didn't know any crypto companies wanted to have anything to do with legacy financial institutions. Good. So how about for the next, medium to long term in cannabis, both in Canada and in the US? What do you see happening? What are some exciting, catalysts that you think are going to change your business and the whole industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement that's sort of built up in the space. Over the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of M&A. So we'll often have two Odyssey clients coming together to form a new leader in the space. And so it's been exciting to be a part of those transactions. And I think, we're at a point now where the industry has matured to a level where, you're seeing real revenue, real profits. And although I think the public markets and going public, that has calmed down a bit.
Yeah.
You may see it start to spike up again as movement around government and regulation starts to come off. But I think it's really exciting what we're seeing at a state level in the U.S. right now, and hopefully it's just a matter of time before the U.S. gets to where Canada is, and you can really crack this nut open and start to capitalize on it.
Right. But in the US, there are a lot of companies that are state-based. So some say that federal regulation could tamper with, with the operations of these companies. Do you see that way, or do you think eventually that will help the entire industry? It's a tough position.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I think, at the end of the day, the ideal situation would be legality across the board so that you wouldn't have to worry when you bump up into a federal regulation impacting a state jurisdiction. I mean, I think you're seeing that in Canada right now, where Canada is really open for business. I think one of the biggest advantages that it has is the cross-province movement.
Yeah.
And so you're not concerned about moving product from BC to Ontario, and so that's one less hurdle that the companies have to face.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly think as you start to move to an even more open U.S. environment, you'll start to see, I think, real advantages start to materialize. And yeah, I think the future is definitely bright in the space, and it still feels very infant in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, interstate commerce would definitely really change the name of the game in the U.S. Mm-hmm. But how about international commerce? I mean, if the U.S. eventually does legalize federally, do you see, commerce going across the border through Canada? Do you see that happening, or not just yet?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of companies that are listed in Canada, but have operations in Latin America, in some parts of Europe. I think the UK is still one country that's emerging, but I think all of them sort of will go at their separate paces. It won't be, the same speed across the board. But I think we also need to get better data from those countries on how the industry is shaping up.
Yeah.
And it still feels like when I'm trying to find metrics, or we're trying to find metrics on our clients, there's so little data because it's been around for so few years, that every year I think that just gets easier and easier to predict and easier to forecast out how the model for the industry is going to shape up.
Great. So do you have a favorite exchange in Canada, or how do you pick, from the New York Exchange, Toronto, or the Canadian Stock Exchange? Is there one that's tailored for each type of company? How do you choose
Yeah, so we don't typically have a say in the exchanges that our clients go on. I think when the cannabis industry really took off, the CCC was there for those issuers and gave them a seamless, easy marketplace to list and to get liquidity, and it was such an exciting time. And then I think now you've seen Neo start to get their issuer base really up to an impressive level, and they're sort of competing, I guess, for clients in this industry based on different attributes of the issuers. But I guess the one that you've seen probably least pull from in cannabis is the TSX, because they weren't open to working with cannabis issuers for quite some time.
Right.
And I'm not sure that their stance has improved in that way, but I know on the transfer agent side, they're still not open to U.S. operations, which in our opinion has really been a lost opportunity because, again, we've had such great partnerships built with U.S. cannabis companies. And it's something that I think, again, has allowed us to diversify across industries and also even more deeply into the U.S.
Wonderful. Okay, so any closing remarks? Anything left that you wanted to communicate?
Yeah, no, I think that's been great. And just say thank you again to Benzinga for having us.
Please.
It's been a great first night, but there's lots of activity happening today, and you can really feel the energy in this space. And with everybody getting back in person, some people for the first time, it's going to be a very busy and exciting day.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan.
Yeah.